I think we're good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm the plain host again. I'm Dan Sissick, and so we're in the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. This is the book, and we are in the second chapter still, I think, and we're at the chapter that part of that chapter that says your heart as the center of the universe. But I'm going to let everybody jump out and introduce themselves really quick, and then we'll get started. And if Catherine would be so kind as to read as she's been doing, she does a wonderful job of doing that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm Angel Studebaker down here in South Carolina.
Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. I don't know if anybody else is going to jump out. If Karen is able to at the moment or not.
Okay. I'll come on out then. This is Catherine. And I'll go ahead. I usually go last so that I can start the reading, but I think the others are just listening at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me switch over to my scribed screen. All right. Your heart is the center of the universe. With love leading the way, your heart can be seen as the center of the universe. From this space of recognition, you may realize through the heart that you embrace. Wait a minute. You may realize through the heart that you embrace, all things are transformed. Whether you stop in moments of turmoil to support your innocence through unexpected change or in the aftermath of devastating loss, you always have the power to expand your consciousness simply by taking the time to honor yourself more often. Even when everything seems fine in your life, you can always stop throughout the day, knowing the love that you cultivate is always sent to all hearts in existence. While you may appear to be one person loving one heart, the blessings and resources that you offer are infinite and far-reaching. It's never a matter of anyone being excluded when loving your heart is your focus. Since the love you send to the world passes through your heart first, you are the first one your blessings touch as they ripple out to every soul. You can think of your heart as a shipping dock for the endless blessings of divinity, where all wishes, dreams, and desires are sent out to be granted in the lives of every dreamer. Imagine the miraculous implications you cultivate by loving your heart more often. Perhaps a farmer who depends on growing crops to feed his family discovers a greater harvest than ever before. As a result, maybe they are able to afford gifts for their family during the holiday season. What if someone who was stuck in an abusive relationship spontaneously finds the courage to move into an environment that honors their true worth and value? What if such courage came to these people as a result of your loving choices? Perhaps a country inundated by drought, unable to grow crops to feed their communities, all of a sudden finds changes in weather that fertilize the soil of their land. As they spontaneously rejoice in the miracle that allows them to grow food and nourish so many families, they may not even know this was made possible by a momentum of energy created by you loving your own heart. This doesn't mean that you are ever the cause of anything you see. More precisely, you are the solution emerging in every form. Even if you misunderstand these words and feel guilty about not loving yourself enough to support the well-being of all, it becomes another opportunity to embrace your guilt as the next one in line to be loved. As you welcome guilt with open arms, you are assisting in releasing it out of the collective unconsciousness for the well-being of all. Although loving what arises can help you to immediately transform discomfort into something more preferable and spacious, I encourage you to take this practice beyond the benefits of a conventional healing modality. Instead of using this practice as a cosmic fire extinguisher to merely resolve the flames of personal despair, I invite you to treasure your heart on a regular basis until the world you are viewing reflects back the light that your love reveals. Chapter 3, The Heart of Surrender. It is common for seekers to anticipate spiritual evolution as a static event or one gigantic moment of realization. Throughout my journey, though, I have come to see how your deepest discoveries are not typically contained in a specific mystical event, but are rather a lifetime of realizations that increase over time. As the maturity of your path unfolds, it becomes easier to see how you cannot define the progression of your journey by how many mystical experiences or awakenings you've had, since many more are sure to come. Equally so, there is no need to judge yourself as if you are falling behind by not having the experiences that others seem to encounter. While moments of transcendence are incredible to behold, the true benchmark of spiritual maturity is how often your words and actions are aligned with love. The willingness to allow your choices to come from a place of love, no matter the outcomes or circumstances at hand, is what I call the heart of surrender. This shift into heart-centered consciousness makes welcoming each moment with openness, kindness, and compassion more vital than what you hope to gain from life. Instead of trying to control the things you can't seem to change, you redefine the way you relate to the world. The heart of surrender is accessed by asking a bold series of questions. They are not questions that require you to search for an answer, but to unearth a visceral response in your body to confirm your deepest wisdom. To enter the heart of surrender, I invite you to ask yourself the following questions. What happens if I stop fighting the things that seem to fight with me? What happens if instead of trying to change the behavior of others, I become the first one to stop fighting, even if others will still fight with me? What do you feel in your body when asking these questions? Even if there is a sensation of fear, the mere consideration of no longer fighting against the things that fight with you becomes another opportunity to release unconscious patterns just by loving the heart that feels so threatened. Perhaps your innocence believes that to stop fighting would result in being overpowered, hurt, or feeling unsafe. What if the circumstances of your life are not what are making you feel unsafe? What if it's your willingness to fight that causes you to feel so disempowered? Without a need to blame anyone for your experiences, what then happens to the sensation of fear? If you can sense a willingness to fight within you, this is surely the next one in line to be on the receiving end of your loving attention. Perhaps you've never loved the part of you that fights because you've been busy joining its crusade. Maybe you've pushed that part of yourself to the background when it didn't seem to act in a spiritually appropriate manner. Whether agreeing with the reasons that justify a fight or trying to get your most relentless thoughts to change their position, within these two extremes, the one who needs something to fight or fix has never been loved as an equal expression of divinity. To resolve this oversight, please repeat the following healing mantra. I accept that the aspect of self that fights is only here to be loved as only I can love it. I acknowledge that the aspect of self that fights is not in a fight with anything or anyone, but is actually fighting for the beauty, ecstasy, and perfection of my own loving attention. I accept that the aspect of self that fights, that is fueled by a need to be right or have the final word, is only fighting for my attention. Since this innocence is only fighting for my attention, I no longer fight against the things that I think are fighting with me. Instead, I offer loving kindness to the innocence that no longer has to work so hard to receive my support. In repeating these words, can you feel a struggle coming to an end that doesn't leave you immersed in doubt or shrouded in fear? Maybe there's a realization that while it feels as if there's much to fight, defend, fix, change, or even maintain, there is an innocence within you that uses these tendencies as attention-seeking devices. Just by recognizing how often you act out the very behavior that cries for your own heart-centered support, you have boldly taken another step forward in an exciting new direction. I think that's probably enough to chew on.
Yeah, I was going to say that last little bit from the end of chapter 2 and then going into chapter 3. Any thoughts from anybody on either of those little sections?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot we can talk about in this section. I mean, it's just really interesting. Kind of like I hadn't read this recently. I read it, a while back, and just kind of let it kind of stew there for a while, and then now we read it again, and I kind of just want to meditate on it and kind of really dig into it and see what it makes me think of, because it's definitely interesting, but I'm kind of curious about this part here where it's talking about, not being the cause of anything you see, but being the solution in every form. And that's in the end of the last chapter. Kind of makes me just think, it's like interesting, because a lot of times we sit here and we say that we're, what's happening in our own world is, a lot of it's our own responsibility in some ways. And yet then at the same time, it's like, you're not the cause of anything. It's like, okay, all right, let me see what that maybe means. Let me think on that for a little bit, and how can I take that information in and compare it to other things that I've learned over the years. So it's definitely something I need to reread that section, because I was kind of posting things while Catherine was reading.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I was trying to welcome everybody on the YouTube channel and kind of, do some things on the background too that I try to help with. But I think what I'm getting out of that is that I think the way we respond is our responsibility and how we do it. And I think a lot of times we just react without really stopping to take a minute and realize that we have a power, or we're in control truly of how we respond. And we can make that conscious decision to not strike back in the same manner. But a lot of times in that moment, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't want to be the one that necessarily always takes the high road or looks at it from, coming from a place of love or something like that. It's like, you hurt me, so now I'm going to just strike back and hurt you, or you said something that I didn't like, or rather than stopping and realizing that, I do have control of how I respond, so that way I can respond with love towards the other person and give that love, and hopefully it helps them to want to respond the same way. But a lot of times people mistake that, or look at it, or will come back and think that, oh, well, you're acting like this for an ulterior motive or something like that. And I think, a lot of times we tend to put a lot more into things than what it really is. I guess, in some ways. But the part that I wanted to go to that I was getting into, and it was right at the beginning of that first part that we read, where your heart is the center of the universe. It says, um, you know, talking about love leading the way, your heart can be seen as the center of the universe. And from this base of recognition, you may realize through the heart that you embrace all things are transformed. And then it's the next paragraph. It's whether you stop in moments of turmoil to support your innocence through unexpected change or in the aftermath of devastating loss, you always have the power to expand your consciousness simply by taking the time to honor yourself more often. Even when everything seems fine in your life, you can always stop throughout your day knowing the love that you cultivate is always sent to all hearts in existence. And I was just talking with Samantha a little bit before we got on that, her tree lights all of a sudden came on. And I said, oh, those are nice, And she said, yeah, Alexa's on a timer now that we have the power back on. And I got into the fact that normally by now I have a tree up. It's up usually right after Thanksgiving or by the 1st of December. And I'm starting, but I haven't been in that mode this year. A lot of it has stemmed from the fact that my mom passed away in July, and this year just Christmas has not really felt the same to me in all aspects with my family, with things going on, and there's a lot of other outside influences that I've been dealing with, so it has not felt like a real Christmas. I'm not that I'm not necessarily in the Christmas spirit. I've been doing the shopping. I've been, watching some of my programs that I like and, things like that. But my heart is not as into it as normal. So in that sense, that loss that I had in July kind of has been overshadowing and taking some of, what my normal feelings are and kind of made it topsy-turvy. So in that, I've been taking a lot of time to really sit and think and look at where my feelings are and how I'm feeling and trying to work through that so I can maybe get back to a place where I can, continue to move on and see Christmas for the pure joy and what it means and the love and, what it means to me as part of my faith and what my beliefs are and everything like that. So this has been kind of real time so when it was saying that, that, you can stop and, look at, and look at my heart and let my heart go back, I guess, that innocence and that love and that pure love and reach back into that, I guess, so to speak, that feeling that I had before and know that I can probably still get it. I just have to really search and grab onto it in a different way than I've had in years past. And so that was what kind of jumped out at me that, because that lasts a little bit, knowing that the love that you cultivate is always sent to all hearts in existence. So maybe if I can get that in myself, I can help put that out to other people like I have done in the past with how much I love Christmas. I don't know if that makes sense or if you guys get anything out of that, but that's just a little bit that really stuck out to me. Don't jump all out at once now.
I wanted everybody to have a chance to say something. I was just reading the next section and there where it was talking about while you may appear to be one person loving one heart, the blessings and resources that you offer are infinite and far-reaching. It's never a matter of anyone being excluded when loving your heart is the focus, since the love you send to the world passes through your heart first. You are the first one your blessings touch as they ripple out to every soul. And I think that this kind of reminds me of how sometimes we feel guilty for doing things for ourselves. And so this is kind of like a reminder to love yourself first, because if you aren't loving yourself first or taking care of yourself first, you aren't going to be as much of a benefit to everyone else. And they kind of takes us down to just like the base level of, send yourself love first, and through that love and through that all other love flows. So it's interesting because we've been taught this before, that start with love, and through that, then you can benefit others. But I think that it is a good reminder that not that we are the only important creations in the universe, because obviously we're all equally important, but we are literally the center of our own universe. And if that's kind of the case, then yeah, we have to start within ourselves in order to benefit anything else in our own world or in our own experience. And so I think that's just a really great reminder. But then I like how it says, think of your heart as a shipping dock for endless blessings of divinity, where all wishes, dreams, and desires are sent out to be granted in the lives of every dreamer. And what if it was like that, where we wish ourselves well, and we bless ourselves, and we love ourselves, and through that miracles happen in the rest of existence. I mean, that's a powerful thing. Is it true? I don't know. I have no idea, but we know we're all connected, and we know that when we send love, then other people can feel it. I mean, even if they don't realize it. I mean, I know when I send you guys love, you guys feel it. And I know when I send my family love, they feel it. And so if I can do that, even the people, in my neighborhood or in my city or whatever, if I sit here and I think about all the blessings that I have in my life, and all the blessings in my town and my city, is I can expand that out throughout the world just from starting within myself. So I feel like that's kind of maybe what he's trying to get at there, but that we don't necessarily have to focus on it that way, is that we can just focus on that love within ourselves, and it automatically radiates out. Like that, the ripple in the pond, that you drop the pebble in the pond and it ripples out.
I just think that it's so remarkable how, most of us were taught as children, and we've discussed this before, not to be selfish, not to focus on ourselves at all, and to fight. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was raised by an exceptionally strong German grandmother who taught me to fight from day one, to fight for everything, that this life was, hard. And the only way to get through it was to fight, fight, fight. And although I wasn't brought up like with, I've never been a sports participant because my body has never been healthy enough to really do that. But, some of the things that I see being taught, in that whole sports mentality, is definitely just fight, fight, fight. And I don't think he's referring to just physical altercations or even verbal altercations, but think about, and this thankfully, and maybe it's because I read this book a long time ago, I don't know, but when I am feeling like I'm at a block and I'm banging my head against the wall and not getting anywhere, I do ask myself, maybe not those exact same questions, but similar questions like, what am I resisting right now? I use the word resist as opposed to fight, but it's the same thing. What am I resisting right now? And that could be doing the taxes, or cleaning out my closet or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be a World War III situation. It's just the everyday things that we do in our life. Do we do them with resistance? Do we do them with love and acceptance? You know, this is near and dear to my heart right now, because a lot of you guys know I'm going through some stuff physically, and one part of me feels like I'm fighting for my life every day, and the other part is saying stop fighting. You know, like it's it, you know, not like I feel like I can't give up fighting, because if I just gave up fighting, I would just melt into a puddle of ooey depression and, you know, do the wrong thing. So we can't go there. So there's a part of me that has to fight, but I'm not fighting against what is anymore. Like, I've had to accept what is, and I've had to accept what I have to do every day to continue to have a life, you know, but at the same time, I'm not like fighting, like angry that it's happening, or I mean, there's a part of me that is, but I also, like, I have so many blessings in my life, and when I really stop and count the blessings, they just so far outweigh the bad stuff that and the way that those blessings come about are so magical and so, like, weird and unexplainable, that I have to believe, and I do believe, that it is all divine in some aspect, and everything is serving in some way, some shape, some form. And so I'm able to make peace with it, um, in a way that it's not soul destroying. You know, it's not like I suffer physically, but I don't suffer in my soul because of this, because I know that somehow it serves. And if nothing else, you know, I'm up half the night in pain, and when I'm like that and I can't sleep, I pray. I pray for our world, and I pray for peace, and I pray for love, and that's what I do. And so, you know, maybe it has taken this situation to get me to pray that much. I don't know. Like, it's so weird how all this stuff works, but I just think it's kind of sad that we're sort of taught all the wrong things. You know, it seems like, as we're, you know, we've been taught like all the wrong things, and I'm really glad that we're learning the right things. And I don't know if it's true or not, Samantha. I really don't, but I do know that if I focus on pain, I feel pain. And if I focus on love, I feel love. If I focus on being sick, if I'm not sick at the moment, I will make myself sick by focusing on being sick. So our brains are these remarkable, I hate to call them a machine, because we so far surpass machines, but what we think comes about, not that we're causing it necessarily. Well, we are causing it. That sentence kind of scrambled me up a little bit too, Samantha. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit. The only thing I can think of at this point in regards to that is that, you know, this is all a divine plan, and maybe it's divine in that, you know, we planned it before we came in, because we all are one, and we all are divine and connected. So, but it's all exactly as it's supposed to be. And so to say that we are creating it or causing it, yeah, but maybe before we came into this, in a way. On the other hand, like I just said, what you focus on, you really can bring about. And so, where do we find that happy median? And how do we recognize when we're creating what we don't want to, or if we're not creating it, are we responding in the appropriate way through fear or through fight or through love? And of course, fight always comes from fear. So it's really only fear and love, basically. But it's a twisted journey through all of that. I'm really thankful for these books that kind of guide us through opening up a different way to look at things.
Oh, okay. I was going to jump out and say, I think yes, you're in a lot of ways, we are taught to fight in the wrong vein and in the wrong way sometimes, or our natural instincts come in and self-survival, or however you want to put it, kind of, take a overarching feel sometimes in how we respond to things and stuff. But I think that sometimes there's fighting in love, through love and with love, and that you can, do that, and through that you can still put that love out. And then there's fighting, like you said, from fear and from a place of where, of lack of understanding or just fear or responding, or even from things that you've been taught. So I think there's, that, in fighting for, like what you really believe and what you feel that is truly right on a higher level, I think that you can do that through love and in love. But I think a lot of times it gets twisted and, flipped on its head sometimes because of how everything else is brought back to us and how we perceive it. So then we kind of twist it sometimes and things like that. So I think, that a lot of things get convoluted because going back to like the book saying, stopping and just taking that moment to go back to that center space of love and to try and reach that true essence of love and give that back out from your heart purely. I think ultimately that's what everybody wants to do and would like to see happen. I just, it's just understanding and fully getting there to get to that level. I think that's part of the other part of this journey that, that God wants us to learn and understand and realize that, love is the overarching, I think, aspect of everything, and how, it can really be the thing that pushes life forward. I don't really have anything else to trying to still wrap my mind around some of this.
I was just had some thoughts on what you were saying, Mom, and what Catherine was just touching on, and how like we are the creator and we are kind of the cause. But I think it's that we're both. We are the creator and we are the cause, but we are also the solution too. Because yet we still create all of this stuff and all the turmoil and things like that. But it's also up to us to go through and fix it or figure it out to make ourselves feel better or bring about the solution and changing our own lives as well too. Even though we bring it in, we also are the ones that need to solve the problem too, because you can't it kind of goes on the whole saying, you can't expect anybody else to fix your own problems. It's always, you are the solution. You know what you need best, what kind of love or whatever. So we are the creator and we are the solution. I think we're both it, not just one or the other, but we're both. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we create our own problems in our own life, and before we had the whole, I lost my whole thought process and my words to put it together. I have it up here, I can't get it out. But I think it's both. We're both the solution and the creator of the problems. So when I can put the words together, I'll come back.
It's okay. I completely get it. My thoughts do that too. Is I'll have this profound thought and then I'll go to say it and it won't come out. And I'll be like, okay, it's beyond words. So I was reminded when you were talking, Catherine, of something I read a while back where it asked you, are you acting from a place of fear or are you acting from a place of love? Or are you responding from a place of fear or responding from a place of love? And, and you can kind of look at every situation that arises and see exactly how, you look at a situation. So for instance, like earlier this year, when we had a driver quit and I had to go back to trucking and I was so angry about it and I was just really, really upset, and of course I was responding from I would say fear, because of this fear of, oh crap, now I have to go back to trucking, and so my whole thing with that is stress levels and then my fear of losing my time for myself and running out of time to do everything that I needed to get done. And so my response was from all of these random fears that were coming up as I can't do this, I won't be able to do that, I can't handle that, and instead I'm going to be having to be stuck in this truck and I won't be able to do the things that I want to do. But then when I kind of let go of all that and I was like, all right, okay, this is what has arisen. And so therefore I need to love what has arisen and stop reacting from a place of fear and just embrace it and go forward and see, go do what needs to be done. And so then I was doing that, of course, and that immediately creates a space of peace within myself, because then I am just doing what I'm always telling the kids is work with what you got, and that's a hard thing to do sometimes when we have all these plans and we have these goals that we're trying to accomplish, and we have all of these different things that we're trying to create in our lives, and something comes up and is a roadblock in our life, and we just automatically want to react with anger and frustration, and all of that comes from fear. And if we can kind of dig down and see, okay, what are my fears within this, then we can realize that's what's happening is we're afraid of something, and remind ourselves, okay, I can trust in my higher self, trust in my spiritual self, that this is what needs to happen right now. This is necessary. And for whatever reason, that is going to get me down the path to where it is that I'm ultimately trying to go. And a lot of times we just don't even realize that these things that are coming up are because of what we ultimately want, and that's hard to wrap our heads around that sometimes, because we've been taught so much, at least, I have, it's like, whatever you want to create, like Catherine was saying, you got to fight for it. You got to work for it. You got to do everything in your power to make that thing happen. Like, if we don't do something, it's not going to happen. Whereas all of our spiritual teachers and all of these books and all of everything that we've learned from talks about allowing and loving and not fighting it and but yeah, our human self wants to fight freaking everything. And, I've noticed in a lot of people in my life, particularly women, is we have a lot of anger in ourselves for so many different aspects. And particularly, because things don't go the way that we think that they should go, or because we feel like we're in a circumstance that we have no control over, or because we feel like we've been pushed around or whatever. And so we have this anger inside of us. And I kind of wonder sometimes if some of that anger has been transferred to us from our mother figures or our grandmothers who struggled in their lives before and never resolved it, and it got passed down to us. I'm really not sure, but if we're all connected and we all have these energetic feelings, and that very well could be. But when I instead focus on loving whatever it is and trusting that I know that I will make the right decision in the right moment and do the right thing, and just allow for that to happen, then I have a whole lot more peace in my life. If I'm struggling against it or fighting against it and arguing and grumpy and all of those things, then everything is more difficult. So but it's hard to keep staying in that place of love when things come up and you just aren't happy about it, whatever that is, So, but I have to remind myself that, because I'll come into a situation and, it won't go the way that I think that I want it to go. And I immediately frustration, anger, and all of that. And, I just have to remind myself to allow and see what arises. That's what the book's talking about, is just love whatever arises and trust that I'm on the right path. I can look back on my life over so many different things that have happened and see how, all of those things put me where I am right now. And if I could have just loved through it, I probably would have been a whole lot less frustrated and angry through a lot of it than, if I could have just trust the process and just allowed, then I would have had a happier journey rather than being grumpy half the time. So anyway.
Okay, I'm going to jump out and from the man's side, kind of also say we can be just as, upset and mad and feel like we have no control, or, that we have, because things don't go the way we want. Because, also from the man's point of view, like in, marriage and relationships, we tend to feel like we have to totally support, have to, make sure everything's safe and good and perfect. And, and when that doesn't go right, and then, you feel like you're letting, whoever you're involved with down and everything. And that, so believe me, we have a lot of times where we get just as mad and just as frustrated and struggle just as much. So I don't think that's a either or thing. I think that's a commonality that we all have, that, is something that's shared between all of us, but yet we feel like we're the only ones that feel that way. But I was going to bring this up because it leads into the beginning of The Heart of Surrender, where it says, it is common for seekers to anticipate spiritual evolution as a static event or one gigantic moment of realization. Throughout my journey, though, I have come to see how your deepest discoveries are not typically contained in a specific mystical event, but are rather a lifetime of realizations that increase over time. As the maturity of your path unfolds, it becomes easier to see how you cannot define the progression of your journey by how many mystical experiences or awakenings you've had, since many more are sure to come. Equally so, there is no need to judge yourself as if you're falling behind by not having the experiences that others seem to encounter. While moments of transcendence are incredible to behold, the true benchmark of spiritual maturity is how often your words and actions are aligned with love. And I think that goes back into, how we think of life as all these major, things, but when we look back, and I think this is where the some of the growth and we look back and we realize some of those things that where we did have some of those major impacts, but they were in the, I want to call the more smaller things that were the smaller ripples that kind of led up to some of the bigger things that happened. But we had the greatest growth either before or right after those big things happened. And I think as we look back, we realized that's what got us to where we are now. And so if you start to understand and learn and realize those things, you start being able to, like you said, realize that, okay, if I just, deal with what it is and like you said, work with what you have, deal with what you have, and not come from that fear, but like, okay, I'll get through this somehow, or it'll work out, or I'll find a way around it, or, I can still do all these things. It just means I have to adjust this, that, or the other thing. I have to adjust how I deal with this person or interact with that person, or, and adjust me and still keep myself in that center of love and moving forward. I think that's part of the realizations and being able to, I think the way I'm trying to say this, kind of revert back to that center, so to speak, easier and faster, and to not have as much stress or turmoil or fight in your life. And you can get to that better flow, and life seems to be a more comfortable pace, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I think in some ways, then maybe you even feel a little more in control. So I think that's, part of that growth and that journey and that realization that, because I think a lot of us will say, well, hindsight's 2020. Had I known that, 20 years ago, things would have been so much different. But if I had known that 20 years ago, would my journey have still been the same journey? And would I have come and realized the same things? And would I appreciate what I've learned as much to want to continue and grow and move forward? And I think that's another part of it, that to come and realize and enjoy and accept that, so you can move forward.
According to many beliefs, especially like indigenous culture beliefs, but you guys will recognize the name Greg Braden, and he also touts this as well, is that we, and I don't know where they got this from, but I'm just saying a lot of the great spiritual texts and everything say that we take on 7 generations, the previous 7 generations of trauma from our ancestors cellularly, like it just, we're born with it basically. And I know that our cells can maintain memories. So it's an interesting concept. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but you were mentioning, Samantha, you thought that maybe we somehow had to manage previous traumas from our ancestors, and I think we do. But I don't know how they ever came to that exact number of 7 generations or whatnot. I have seen so many of my friends, and also times in my life, I definitely see it in myself, where we get it in our mind that there's an injustice going on, and we're going to fight to fix that. And I have seen it take really loving beings and turn them into scary people. Like and the past, since COVID started, and some of the political oppositional things going on the last couple of years, really, I have seen really gentle, loving beings turn into these fighting, like almost need to be put in some place where they can just decompress or something, like they're just going off the rail, seemingly out of love, railing against something that they feel is injustice, but it still brings forth so much anger and hatred and judgment, and not, just not allowing another being to have their own thoughts about things, like really wanting to control how other people feel, how other people live. It's really been quite an interesting experience these past couple of years, watching how we've all handled this, and we're all connected. So even though we may have completely different beliefs from someone else, I mean, we're still connected to that in a way. So I'm bringing this up just because of what you said, Dan, about, I think you can fight for something with love. I'm not sure that you can, and yet I want to. Like I want to be able to go fight for people that don't have enough food, or countries where women have no rights, and like I want to be able to go fight for that in the name of love. But the older I get, and the less I know, basically, fighting is fighting and love is love, and they're two different things.
Yeah, good point, Catherine. Like if you were to go and fight for these human rights or women's rights in other countries, where is that fight coming from? Is it actually coming from love, or is it coming from a fear that those women may never have rights? Is it coming from a fear that if you don't do something, that more women are going to be hurt, right? And so I think that, I think anytime we're fighting something, it's always from a place of fear rather than from love, because we think if we don't do something, something bad is going to happen or something worse is going to happen, versus trusting. And trust is from a place of love, that you'll do the things that you need to do in the right moment, because I feel like a lot of times when we want to fight something, it's because maybe we don't know what it is. We can't trust that everything will be as it is supposed to be, and we have to get involved, we have to do something about it. It's like the whole political situation in the world right now. I'm like, every time I even think about looking at something relating to the news, that just immediately brings up anger and frustration and blah, and I should do something, and yet it's because what I feel like is when I think about that stuff, I have these fears. It's like, is the world going in the toilet? That's I have this fear that the world's going in the toilet. And so instead of just acting from a place of love, and which is what I want to do, I want to act from a place from love. I don't want to pay attention to all of that fear stuff. I want to just act from love and know that it sucks. I'm not saying it's good right now. It's horrible right now for a lot of people, but I have to work from where I am, and work from within myself, and work from a place of love, and send love out into all of that. And because I can see so much of what is going on in the world is because everybody is in fear of something, and they're reacting from that place. And the only way to solve and resolve fear and hatred and anger and frustration is from a place of love. So that's, and if I'm trying to push back on all of that anger, then I'm reacting from anger instead of from a place of love. But it's hard. It's hard to see what's going on in the world and not be feeling like I need to do something about it. And when I say out in the world, of course, I talk about what's going on in the grand world of things, but I can also see the little things that are going on in other people's lives that are close to me. And it's like every time I think about you, Captain, and the pain and everything that you're going through, I'm like, I have to do something. I have to fix this. We had this thought that we had to fix whatever the problem is. And maybe we can do a little something, but we can't resolve it. We can't fix it for someone else. We have to allow them to be in the place in their journey that they are, and just send love, because that is, like it was saying in here, it's not one sudden great grand ascension or realization. I can't remember the words were. Dan, you read it. It's a series of little things that we discover along the way in our life's journey, and we just have to recognize everybody else is in a different place on their journey in this life than what we are, and all we can do is send love and send ourselves love. And I think that's a great reminder. It keeps telling us, when we're having fear, or when we're having anger, or we're having whatever is coming up within ourselves, we need to send it love. And if everything else outside of us is a reflection of what's going on inside of us, then all of this is an indicator that we need to be sending ourselves a shit ton of love, because all of this reflection outside of us is some serious shit going on. So send ourselves more love. That's what I got out of that. Sorry, I dropped off there for a minute. My power did its thing again. And
Okay, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, which is usually what I end up doing and I love doing. I still think that's, in a way, I'm not going to say that it's fighting in the sense of what we think of fighting as. I still think love is a powerful and a strong and mighty, for lack of, I don't want to say weapon, but it's a tool, it's a means, and it's a way. And by giving that out and continually giving that out and letting that be where you come from, I still think it's a way of, it's fighting against the fear. It's fighting against what's out there. It's showing where you're coming from. And hopefully that ripple, granted, it may not be the big, powerful words or the big, things or the big actions or something, but it's more when it's really readily and used from a pure place of love and strength and love. It's still, I still think I see it as a way of fighting against everything that's out there that's coming against and attacking, or that we normally respond in and that we normally use and react with. So to me, it's still a way of fighting. It's fighting not in the sense of fighting, but it's still overcoming and given what, well, yeah, but in a sense, it's bigger and stronger than that, even when it's used genuinely and with nothing more, no real expectations or anything or something like that, and that ripple just continues and continues and continues. And I still see it as because it does combat all that's out there. It's just not combative in the same way of how we look at fighting and stuff like that. But that's how in my mind I look at it. And if I come from that point of pure, which I don't do very often, believe me, I'm just as human as anybody else, and I react and I respond, and and I respond out of fear. But in looking back at some of my life and some of the things I've done and how I've responded and how I've treated, I'm going to even say certain people that did things to me that And yet I've responded in certain ways rather than responding in love and looking past that and still loving them for that, or, in general, out there. I still think it's still it's a way to counteract. I'll use counteract, coming from fear and coming from not understanding, or, insecurities and things and stuff like that. That's how I look at it. That's where I want to try and come from. That hopefully my heart is where it's coming from.
Speaking of love, I know we're almost at the end of the session, and I just want to step out and I know that I speak for everybody on this panel and everybody that is not here on this panel, but in our group. I just want to send Lori so much love. We are all there with you in spirit. She's with her mama right now, and they're going to be saying their final goodbyes here in a little bit. And I just want her to know that our arms are wrapped around her in a big group hug, and we love you. And that's a difficult time, Dan. You just went through it, and it doesn't matter, if we know it's coming or if it comes unexpectedly. It's part of the human experience. It's inevitable, but it's part of the human experience, and it's really tough. But it's also, as someone who has helped people transition my whole life, it is also such a beautiful release for the person who's leaving. I encourage you to if you have fears, or if you are still suffering with a lot of grief, I encourage you have to, of course, filter through a little bit, but go to YouTube and look at some videos by people who have had near-death experiences. I have had one, so it's easy for me to believe in them. I know some people don't believe in them, but go and listen to the stories. They're all so similar, and it is, once you realize that person isn't gone, it just helps. It helps ease that grief a little bit. It's still there. You still miss them, of course. You still, just want to touch them and hug them in physical form. But they're the spirit, like, they're still there. And I just wish that I could give that piece of calm and acceptance that I have about death and transitioning. I wish I could just put it in a capsule and give it to people so that they could take it, because I have experienced both sides, the grief without that belief and knowing, and the grief with that belief and knowing. And it's so much better if I could just put it in a pill and let you take it, because I know the suffering that comes from before that belief and knowing. I love you guys, and I hope everybody has a great week.
Well, like Catherine pointed out, we are about 10 minutes past the hour. So if anybody else has any final thoughts to say, if not, I'll wrap it up. But I'll give everybody a second to see if they have any last thoughts.
I don't really have any final thoughts for today on the section that we read. I do look forward to reading further, but I did want to just send my love to Lori. We're thinking of you, Lori, and we love you so much, and I love all of you guys here. I really do, and I'm just very thankful that we have this group where we can come together and share these thoughts, even if they're not completely in alignment with each other, Dan, and you share some points of view that aren't always exactly my point of view. And I know I do the same, and Catherine and Karen, we all do. And I still love you, and we can do that. And that's just that's a wonderful thing, because I don't think everybody has that in their life. And I'm glad that we do. Thank you. Love you all.
I know I haven't been talking for several of our sessions, and I'm making little quick trips to the smallest room of the house. But I certainly continue to love you all and appreciate what you share. And I'll be going through a transition, not the same as Lori's mom or Dan's mom, but I hope, but kind of a big one for me. And so hopefully and feel my love, and I do appreciate you all.
Well, I'm gonna jump out and say also that I posted in our group chat, just letting Laura know that we were thinking of her and sending our love to her. Same to you, Karen. Hoping that whatever you're going to be, facing here in the near future, that it goes however it's supposed to be planned to go, and that it's our thoughts and our love and our prayers are with you for going through that it works the way it needs to, and hopefully to your benefit, and to help get you to where you need to be. And so with that, if there aren't any other thoughts or anything, I'm going to wrap it up for this week's session of the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Once again, we're in the book Whatever Arises, Love That, by Matt Kahn. And we will be continuing on with chapter 3, and starting on creating your own personal love statement. So with that, see you all next week here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind.